morning was about climate crisis, acknowledging that climate crisis is a reality and that we need to take responsibility for it and find creative solution at an individual level, at a local level, at a national level, and globally is the only way forward. And our little small baby steps can make a huge difference. That is what we learned about this morning. And just now, with Ms. Shiv Khera, we got so many nuggets of advice, information, useful tips that I don't know where to start. But I think what my take back is going to be is that we have to be givers and not takers in life. We should give freely, and whatever we deserve, we will get. Moving on very quickly to the next session, which is We Too, Changing Gender Dynamics. Empowerment is a word very often associated with women. Do we say empowering men? How did this subtle yet suggestive concept creep upon us? Are women the Abla Nari, or are we the backbone of the society? And I just don't mean the Vasant Vihar society, where we are pretty strong. Yesterday, during a session on economy, Professor Omkar Goswami said, India has a relatively low women workforce. I think that is perhaps something which the panel today could speak a little bit about. As of 2021, India has recorded a gender ratio of approximately 1,020 women to 1,000 men. This is the first time that the gender ratio has leaned more towards women. Also, the International Women's Day, which is celebrated internationally, I did say international, so yeah, it's an International Women's Day. It's celebrated on March 8th, has come early to our club. We have a distinguished panel of ladies who are part of the workforce statistics and have created a niche for themselves and are torch bearers for many of us. So could I invite on stage Usha Albuquerque, who is going to be the moderator of the session, Urvashi Butalia, Poonam Mutreja, and Sonia Bhatnagar. We are very sorry to let you know that Kishwar Desai had a family emergency and she's not been able to be here this afternoon. Ladies, a round of applause, please. I'm just going to introduce Usha Albuquerque, who doesn't need any introduction because she is a familiar face who we have watched on television for many years. And she is going to be introducing the panelists and moderating the session. A little bit about Usha Albuquerque is she's a well-known television producer, a newsreader, which I said earlier, and one of India's pioneer career counselors. And over the past 2 decades, she has helped thousands of students across the country make informed career choices. She's a gold medalist from Madras University and has produced and directed more than 500 documentary programs on a variety of social and educational issues. She won the National Film Award in 2004 for her film Seeds of Life, a short documentary on Star TV, and a short documentary on Star TV called Silent Killing on female infanticide. Usha is a writer and a columnist for several national dailies and the author of several career guidance books. Ma'am, over to you.
Would it surprise you to know that around 53% of the overall female population in India has an undergraduate degree? You may also be surprised to know that 18% of all startups in India are led by at least one woman founder or co-founder. And if we were to include the unicorns and the potential unicorns, this figure could go up to 36. We also all know that girls outperform boys, particularly in the competitive exams in the country, and that women have broken practically every male bastion, shattered all stereotypes, and gone, as we would say, where no woman has gone before. But, you may not want to know, but it's something we still need to know, is that there has been a consistent rise of crimes against women in 2021. India recorded the highest number of crimes against women ever, and this is government data. That 85% of women in India experience gender prejudice in terms of wage hikes and promotions, according to the Business Standard. That 1 in every 3 married women across all backgrounds face domestic violence. That although child marriage is banned and illegal, almost 50% of all women in the age group of 20 to 24 were married off before the legal age of 18. And that despite the rise in education, which I mentioned earlier, just about 21% of women participate in the workforce. And add to that the dismal figure that there are only 9% of women represented in our national legislature. And I think we need to just add one more fact. I think the woman-man ratio is not 1,021. I think the current rate is about 930, maybe 940 per every 1,000 male. So in a country where over 80% of the population worships goddesses of different kinds, these disturbing statistics indicate that the status of women are very far from this exalted godly position. Good afternoon, friends, and welcome to the second day of the Vasant Vihar Club LitFest, and welcome to our session, We Too, Changing Gender Dynamics. I'm Usha Albuquerque, and I have with me a distinguished panel, and we are going to dialogue on a subject that touches all our lives. Because we too, as women, or at least as 48% of women, of us are women, we too matter. Matter to the world in general, and matter to the remaining 52% of the population. We too can do a job as good as any man. We too can and must inspire change. We too can share in nation building, and we must contribute to the GDP. And we too are part of a larger society where entrenched patriarchy still exists. We too are responsible for why the situation is like this. And I'll add another we too, and that is from what Mr. Shiv Khera just told us. We too must fight. Fight is part of nature. Now, not utilizing 50% of your population is a loss to any country, and that is from Indra Nooyi, former CEO of PepsiCo, and also ranked among the top 100 most powerful women in the world. She said, and I quote, "I don't believe there is any economy in the world that can be successful without tapping into the incredible potential of women. I just don't believe that's possible." Yet, in Indra Nooyi's home country, women contribute only 17% to the GDP. This is among the lowest workforce participation rates for women in the world. For China, this is 40%. Even Bangladesh scores higher. And while simply bridging the gender gap in employment could raise India's GDP to maybe about 30%, to make matters worse, if recent trends are an indicator, the number of working women in India is actually declining. Yes, friends, it is actually declining. I think as Indians become wealthier, they prefer to keep women at home. After all, the additional income is not necessary, and the male earner, feels he has kept his honor and his pride. Indian society rather unfairly expects women across social strata and education to be what we would call good housewives, have kids, take care of domestic chores, so they largely drop out of the workforce either when they get married or they have children, and their careers either stagnate or end. Studies show that the key determinants of women's empowerment are related to social patterns around society, the family, and the woman herself. In India's patrilineal society, women bear the unfair burden of representing the values of the family she's born into or she's married into. So her social conditioning, her very identity, is tied to her role in the family. With these social parameters, how can India realize its dream of becoming the world's most powerful economy? Is this really what is holding India back? To deliberate on these and the very many issues such a discussion can raise are four very erudite, eminent, and articulate panelists with diverse experiences. We have on our left Sonia Bhattanagar. She has worked in advertising for more than 2 decades. She has been a national creative director of a global advertising agency and is currently an independent creative brand consultant and a writer. She is known for launching and growing brands like Pepsi, Horlicks, Sophie, Santoor, and Kurkure. She specializes in creating campaigns where women are central and lead communications. And she has represented India at the Cannes Festival to participate in a discussion on the changing role of women in creative leadership. Sonia has now taken to writing with her debut novel, launched recently, In Your Blood I Run, published by HarperCollins. It is set in British India of 1936, and the book explores themes like personal freedom, racial divides, gender roles, and sexual conflicts, even as it tells a gripping crime story. One of India's foremost activists in the women's movement, a Padma Shri awardee, a writer and a publisher, Urvashi Butalia co-founded India's first feminist publishing house, Kali for Women, which published books that have gone on to become contemporary classics in women and gender studies. She now heads Zuban, set up after Kali's closure in 2003, and continues to write and publish widely, and among her best-known publications is the award-winning History of Partition, The Other Side of Silence, Voices from the Partition of India. She is currently finishing a book on the life of a Hijra, Mona Ahmed. With 40 years or over 40 years in the development sector, Poonam Mutreja has been closely associated with issues concerning women's health, rural livelihoods, and social justice. She served as a country director India for the MacArthur Foundation, co-founded and led the Ashoka Foundation, Dastakar, and the Society for Rural, Urban and Tribal Initiative, Shruti. She is currently the executive director of the Population Foundation of India and has co-conceived the popular transmedia initiative Main Kuch Bhi Kar Sakti Hoon, which has been a change maker through several successful seasons. She is also on the governing council of several non-governmental organizations and is a regular commentator in India and globally for television and print media. Welcome, ladies, and I look forward to the discussion. Thank you very much for being here, and we look forward to a rather lively and hopefully a very meaningful dialogue. This is going to be a rather free-flowing dialogue because we have experts in the field, and I would like all of their views on a range of issues which we have talked about earlier as well. We're going to start with the most important one, which is the goal of gender equality. This goal seems so distant. India stands at the 140th position out of 156 countries in the Global Gender Gap Index, brought out by the World Economic Forum. Why is it that India is finding it so difficult to close this gender gap when other countries have been able to make some progress? I think we heard, and I think Sanjana also quoted the case of our speaker yesterday, who spoke about Bangladesh, and women in Bangladesh have been upskilled, work in the ready-made garment sector, and their work has actually contributed to a huge raise in the national GDP. Why are we not able to replicate such a model in India? What is holding us back? I'll start by asking you, Urvashi, since you have worked a lot in the movement.
Actually, I think within the movement, the feminist movement in this country, this is not a question that actually can be laid at the door of the movement. This is really a question of political will, state policy, and putting in place measures, not only, I mean, how do you understand the whole question of equality? So for me, actually, in India, talking about equality, even if we are talking about gender equality, is a mistake. Because we can't talk about equality in a society which is so deeply hierarchized that who, for example, does a poor woman want to be equal to? Does she want to be equal to her poor male husband? Does she want to be equal to a middle-class woman like you or me? Does she want to be equal to a very rich man? Does she want to be equal to Shiv Khera, for example? You know, so I don't think that we can talk about equality without talking about equity in this country, which means the opportunities that allow women and those who are marginalized, such as Dalits, tribals, minorities, which allows them the opportunity to be given, let's say, affirmative discrimination of a kind, where you come up to a level and then the field can be equal. So I think conceptually, to me, equality raises that question. But other than that, I think that although you see a change in policy documents in India from the time that India became independent to today, where there is a deeper and deepening understanding of women and gender, from a moment when they're seen as beneficiaries to a moment when they're seen as central to development. There is a shift. But that shift does not find its way into implementation and policy except very sporadically. And issues are addressed in silos, so you might address education. As you yourself said, we see education figures rising, but we see workforce participation figures dropping. So what is going on over here? And I think that things have to be addressed at every level. You look at health, Poonam will be able to talk about that, and you see the situation for women's health is dismal. It's really dismal. And it's a very short-sighted policy. I'll just give you one example, then I'll stop. Because during the pandemic, for example, because all services, all medical services were pulled into crisis care, several of the services that are essential for women disappeared. So pregnant women could not get an ambulance to go to a hospital. A woman being battered inside her house could not report to the rape crisis center or the police thana nearby because all police services had been shifted to tracing COVID cases. Now, for any state which is dealing with a disaster, and we have had enough disasters in India for us to know historically that there is a gendered impact of disasters. Why did we not kick in with those services? So this is this kind of this question of political will. You know, people don't actually see it. I mean, it's the best of people. We heard Mr. Khera's speech. There was not a word about women in it. Every example he gave was male. I mean, how can you talk about equality then?
How true. And I think a large part of this is also some of the social conditioning that goes on. Over centuries, we've been exposed to this social conditioning where every parameter and every social parameter we talk about is male-centered. And I think that is what needs to change, because that is not just relevant to the woman in the village, the rural tribal woman or the Adivasi. It's across the board. I mean, today, even among the most well-off and the most educated, the social conditioning remains. A woman's role is defined in certain ways. Poonam, what would you say to this centuries of social conditioning? Can it be altered, and are we doing enough bringing about some change?
See, as far as gender issues go, whether it's employment, education, and so on, women's issues go, it's 2 steps forward we take, and we take 1.5 steps backward. And we are working, spending a lot of energies on maintaining that half gain that we've made. And why is this so? It's been repeated by everybody. We are a patriarchal society. We are a patriarchal society because our social norms are very not just inequitable, but they don't include women. Yeah. It's not inclusive of women. So let me list out the 3 areas where I think where it comes to workforce participation to begin with, which go against women the most and come in the way of workforce participation, even if there were opportunities. The first is the caregiving role of the woman. Whether it is children or it is elderly in the house, it is the woman who does the caring. And that is a reason many women don't enter the workforce. That is the reason many leave. The most qualified, as well as the poorest who needs the money to feed her child, they will leave the workforce. So one is the caregiving role, which if you look at the caregiving economy in India, we haven't done very much, whether it is young for the children or it is for the elderly. And India is an aging society. The sooner we think about it, the better, because the burden on women is going to continue to increase. Second reason is the masculine toxic culture that is there in the workplace, which again, I'd love to have heard Mr. Khera, and next time you have an inspirational speaker, it would be nice for them to, and they have, I'm sure, the ability to inspire society, men and women, but especially the men, to have a more inclusive environment and a less toxic culture. From the minute a woman is interviewed, she's asked, when will you get married? If she's not married, how many children? When do you plan to have children? Is a man asked? Is there any man who's been asked that question? No. Most women are asked that question in interviews, or it basically the entire career and work life is determined by that. The third reason is very clearly that there is a perception and there isn't that women can't do better or women are not equal. And over there, the big issue is what kind of culture do you have in the organization? Do you nurture women? Do you respect them for the multitasking they do? Do you create an environment? No, we don't have such an environment. So that's, only on the workforce. But why, unless we change social norms and behavior, changing social norms is not enough. We have to change our individual behavior. We have to change as a society. For instance, women not only they have a biological advantage where there should be more girls than boys, actually, in reality, like even Africa does in the US. But women have the biological, advantage, privilege, achievement, I call it, for being able to give birth to children. But what But what about caring? Surely that's an area that men can participate actively in and have the privilege. But second, I want to say on that issue, how do we take care of our women? If from the health point of view, you raised India's maternal mortality continues to be stubbornly high. For every 100,000 women who give births to babies, we still have more than 100 women dying. And there are 20 other women for every woman who dies who's living dying. Third, if you look at family planning, which is the most concrete way to empower a woman on her reproductive sexual rights and the number of children she has, and for her career, her age at marriage, all these issues. These are decided not by the woman herself. They are decided by the family, the husband, and others who, I mean, you know, the tragedy in India today is that for every woman who goes through sterilization, she goes through, at the end of her number of kids she's had, she's never had access to temporary methods of contraception. She is given, she goes through multiple abortions as a proxy for contraception, and this is for both educated and not so educated women. Then violence, when you are living in a toxic environment, office, at home, a culture of violence, where it's 1/3, as was said earlier, women experience domestic abuse in India. And this is cuts across class, caste, religion, and income levels. You know, how is a woman, how do they survive in the competitive corporate sector? And finally, I just want to end by saying we have to be very conscious at every level on changing and being different. And men have a big role and responsibility. Women know what is happening. And let me say, the young girls, their aspirations have changed. And so we should see the coffee, smell the coffee.
Absolutely. I'm glad you raised all those issues. In fact, Sonia, you come from a corporate background, so I think you would be able to give us a lot of insights into how are women, you know, coping with these kind of pressures in the corporate workplace, and has it changed over the years? Is it changing for the better? Do women get better recognition for their worth? I mean, when I was reading about just Indra Nui herself, she, you know, always said that she had to rush home to look after her kids because she always had that pressure of social responsibility, family responsibility, as well as her work. So what would you say about that?
So what I've seen is that the fight is on. It doesn't seem to have gotten any easier for women, you know. One reason is also because we've been conditioned to believe that the home is our responsibility. You know, even if our men want to help, we want to do more. So we end up doing more. We end up doing 2 shifts. So now we feel that we own, you know, a space in the corporate world. So we go out and do that. And then we come back home and try and take over everything that's happening at home too. So I think it really starts with us. We have to believe that, you know, whatever it is that we want to do, we can't do it all. And we've got to make it easier on ourselves, you know. And women's health, I think, is also impacted. There's a huge reason why she joins the workforce so excited, wanting to make a mark, etc. But over time, with all this pressure that she puts on herself, she herself feels the need to take a break. So when she has a child, she feels, oh, I'm going to take a break, and then it gets even more difficult to come back, you know. And even now, and I feel this is lip speak, even as we say that, you know, what do we do to bridge this gap? Who wants to bridge this gap, really? Who? Us sitting here? You know, it's lip speak. Even in the corporate world, it's lip speak, and it's getting, of course, very fashionable now. The year I went to Cannes, that was the buzzword, you know, women empowerment, you know. But that's all it is. These are words. And where is the action behind these words, really? there is no action. I mean, if the action is there, it's negligible. So much more has to be done. I mean, look at the parliament, look at, I mean, anywhere you go, women's stories aren't being told. Let's get back to, writing. I mean, are women's stories being told? Who's listening? When you think about bravery, you think about patriotism, men's stories are being told. Where are the women? Even though we talk about busting stereotypes, are we really doing that? Are there women Tarantinos out there? And shouldn't there be? In advertising, there was this whole need, we would say that, come on, give us the cars, give us the tires. We want to write those ads. Why is it that every time you have a feminine product, you say, oh, let's call Sonia, let's call her. So at every level, there's just so much more to be done, is all I want to say.
Okay, I'll get back to the media question and the role of media, because that's a really powerful area. But I want to really go back to the social conditioning, the social norms, and the education. We talk about education levels being raised. Now, why are we not being able to impact that on other walks of life? The women getting, maybe, as you said, they're not necessarily into corporate jobs, but why can't they be upskilled? Why can't they have meaningful lives? Why is this not happening enough? Urvashi?
I think the first step is to value women, to understand that women are not only contributors to society in equal measure, if not more, but also that they have a right to all the rights and everything that normal citizens have. We don't do that. Women's citizenship, from the time that India became independent, has been mediated through the family. So their rights are, even rights to property, things like that, all of those things that needs changing quite a lot. I think also what Sonia was saying just now, it's not, when we say women's participation in the workforce is falling, that is very true because the statistics tell us that. And yet the other reality is, look around you, walk around Vasant Vihar. Women will be working on the streets everywhere. You will not see women not working. You will not see them hanging out at the chai stall. You will see men hanging out at the chai stall. So what is happening is that women fall in and out of work.
Unpaid labor.
No, it's paid. It may be something, it's informal. And basically what is happening is that the domestic responsibility will pull them back in. So they leave X job, like a domestic worker or something, or because of COVID, when many were thrown out of domestic work, then they'll take whatever else comes. And they'll be working. So they're forever working. They are forever invisible in that work. They are forever unmapped. And it looks like they are falling out of the workforce, which they are, out of the formal workforce. That goes back to something else that Sonia was saying, when she was saying that where is the motivation, etc. I think every woman in India, no matter how poor she is, no matter how marginalized she is, every woman in India carries in her heart the dream to make her life better, and not only for herself, but also for her sisters, for everybody around. She simply does not have the opportunity. Given the opportunity, women can do wonders. And I will give you one example from one of my authors, because I'm a publisher. So there is a young woman whose work I publish. She's called Baby Haldar. She's a domestic worker. She was married at the age of 12, like many poor women are, low caste, married at the age of 12, mother by the age of 13, 2 more children, violent husband, jobless, brutal, everything. She took it all. She tried to bring up her family. Then one day she decided, the hell with this, I can't take it anymore. Picked up her 3 children, got onto a train ticketless, came from Calcutta to Delhi, and here, with difficulty, after a long time, found a job in the house of a retired professor who happened to be the grandson of one of India's most famous writers called Prem Chand. And he noticed that every time she was cleaning his house, because she was cooking, cleaning, etc., that she paid a lot of attention to his library. And one day he came and asked her and said, can you read? And she said, you know what, I was desperate to study, but I was pulled out of school and married, and I got no opportunity to study. So he started to lend her books, and he started to talk to her about those books. She became literate. She became a writer, because one day he gave her a notebook and a pen, and she said, "What should I do with this?" And he said, "Do what you like, write your life." She wrote her life. It became a best-selling book, translated into 23 languages, and today she's a writer. So imagine this woman from a poor family, all she needed was somebody to value her and see her as a human being and say, "I will provide you the chance that life has denied you." That's all women are asking.
Why is it that there is not enough scope for this to happen? Why does it have to be sometimes even mandated by government? You know, like marriage age. It has to be mandated. You cannot get married before 18, and yet, as we know, 50% of women do. Why can't we change things, and how is it possible to change those? The way in which people are thinking, and particularly in areas, and this is not just in the rural areas, even in small towns, that continues. And though the dowry is accepted, the domestic violence is accepted even by women.
Of course, just as war and violence are accepted even by men, but we don't blame them for it, right? Well, just as crime is accepted even by men, just as men fight with each other all the time,
Yes.
but we don't think that's anything unusual. I just want to say one small thing. You know, many of you in the audience have got gray hair like me, so I'm guessing that we may be the same vintage. That means we might have grown up in Delhi at the same time. I don't know if men in this audience have ever noticed that in Delhi, how many toilets for women are there? When I was growing up as a young woman, there were no toilets for women. And when I mention it to my men friends, they say, "Oh, really?" Because they've never noticed. And this also needs to be done. You need to notice the discrimination around you that is being addressed to your partners and talk about it. But if you don't even notice that we don't have loos to go to in public, I mean, really, then how do you notice us as human beings?
Yes,
So I think it just comes down to we need more men allies. That's what we need. I mean, what we're discussing is what we need men to be discussing this.
I agree, 100%.
You know, I just
Because the
wanted to
role
say-
of men as not just partners, but as sharing responsibility.
Yes, even the roles that we give women. I mean, I heard Mr. Kera speaking just before me, and he did not want to take up that job as a life insurance agent, but his wife convinced him. You know what I'm saying? So we're just, there's a certain stereotype of a woman who does this, and that is perpetuated. And we need men allies to call that out.
Yes, Poonam, you want?
So I don't. Men as allies is the ultimate goal, yes, but we need to bring up our men differently. We need to change our men. You know, when I launched Main Kuch Bhi Kar Sakti Hoon, the serial that you talked about, 183 episodes over 3 seasons, we were very keen, men watched that, but we weren't willing to compromise on the name, which is Main Kuch Bhi Kar Sakti Hoon. And we thought perhaps that'll prevent a lot of men from seeing the Dharavahik. It was on Doordarshan, and you know, you'll be surprised when we did the evaluations, 48% of our viewership was men. And there was equal change between men and women when perception of violence is concerned. Not behavior change, I'm talking about perception. 60% people had said it's legitimate, 61 for women and 60 for men. And we know that women are also conditioned, and women also have the responsibility on the practice of patriarchy. So the fact that they watched it, now we've looked at the impact, 20% less men, 20% less women thought it is legitimate to beat a partner. And then we heard about this in Bundelkhand, which is the most backward district that backward area, but this district, I forget the name of the district. It is a very backward area, and this, in terms of education, income, women's autonomy, women's education levels, and so on. There was a men's movement that started, and these men took what they called a pran, that they will not only not beat their partners, and they went village to village mobilizing. So there is potential. It's just that no one should be seen this as condemning men. We just have done a terrible job as a society of reinforcing and bringing up the men or the expectations differently. And I think we've been discussing this for too long. We've been recognizing, women have recognized it, as Urvashi rightly said, every woman has an aspiration, however poor she is, for herself and her family and her daughter. So what I'd like to really say is that we need an absolute paradigm shift and a very different construct. And I think as individuals, not just as society, yes, will change when individuals change. And I always say, even in Main Kuch Bhi Kar Sakti Hu, one of our lines is, Desh badlega jab mard badlega. Mahilaएं badal gayi rahi hain and they know what is the problem.
True. I'm glad that is being raised, but I still feel that many women continue with thinking that, particularly when their children are coming up, they have a girl and a boy, they treat them differently. And this again is across income levels. Women just feel the boy has to be treated in a different manner. The kind of facilities he's given are different, the girls are different. Has there been any change, like you've noticed in your serial? Has there been any change from these messages that have been given out?
So totally. So we had 3 seasons, 52 episodes in each season, which were externally evaluated. For instance, 8% women said they plucked the courage to do it, negotiate family planning with their husbands. It's very difficult for an educated woman to negotiate family planning with the husband or use of contraception. 2 or 3 other areas, a large percentage of girls, young girls, when they realized it's illegal, age at marriage is illegal, because a little girl doesn't know that. We have seen movements across the country where girls are not agreeing to get married, and they form agency, because the whole Main Kuch Bhi Kar Sakti is about collective action and so on. And so they form groups and so on. And there is this wonderful, again, story from Bundelkhand, where this girl was the first girl who went to college, inspired by Main Kuch Bhi Kar Sakti Hu. And when she decided to go to college, she managed to convince her husband. But guess what? The panchayat held a meeting and said no. If she gets educated, goes to college, other girls will want to do it. They even tried to run a truck on her. She fractured her foot. But that time we heard about it and provided a lot of support and made a lot of noise. She went to college, and within a year, 10 more girls went to college. But stopping age at early marriage, I have seen, and it's not because only of our serial, but it is, today the other half knows how the better half lives thanks to communication media. And not just our serial. Our serial did reach 400 million people cumulatively, which means they have seen once, because Doordarshan has a very high penetration, as you know, and 216 radio stations, digital media, and so on and so forth. And I want to end with the story. What I want to say is, it's not just about our work. Regardless of what we do and don't do, women's aspirations and girls' aspirations, thanks to the media, and people say, oh, girls have less access, or there's a huge digital gender divide, which is true. But the number of girls who do have access, even in the most poor backward areas, to 2 hours of sharing the smartphone on which they access information. So I always say the change is not happening only because of my Kuch Bhi Kar Sakte. This is when we do the evaluations. It's a whole lot of other things, and especially the media and the role of many, many movements and so on in the rural areas, which are silently, which are never covered on television. NGOs, feminists today are demonized on TV and in the media, but there's a lot happening out there, and I expect the young girls actually to create a big change, and amongst the younger generation, the boys are behaving a little better, but we need a lot more.
A lot more, a lot more. And I think this is where the role of the media can certainly play a big role in terms of, I think, not just programs and the way in which women are depicted. I think that's something that really needs a massive change.
I think we are seeing that change in advertising, but we can see a lot more of it. I mean, just the role of the mother in advertising. I mean, you can see that she's doing whatever she's been doing for the last 50 years. I mean, when it's the kitchen, she's right at the center of it, anything to do with the home. So the mother is the traditional, and that is the change we need to see. We need to see her having the same aspirations as her husband has. We need to see that the husband can sometimes take over that role in the kitchen and ask her to go out and do whatever she wants to do. And that's happening. That's happening. You can count them on your fingers, but it's happening.
But what about the serials? Those serials have such a regressive role for women in most of the serials. And that's what is watched by millions of people across the country.
That's the tragedy. The
How do we change that?
The stories we are telling, that's the tragedy. Because we are not being true to ourselves, and not enough women are telling their own stories. There are men writing those stories,
Even the women, Ekta Kapoor has done
more damage. We can be our worst enemies, no doubt about it.
Yes,
Can I come in
absolutely.
on this
Please.
question, Usha?
Yes.
Sorry.
Yes,
I
please.
just want to go back to the question because Sonia also just said women have become their own worst enemies. And Poonam mentioned Ekta Kapoor, and you asked the question, why are mothers complicit in reinforcing stereotypes, etc.? I think we are very quick to condemn women when they do, because we expect them to behave immediately, perfectly, and we place such high expectations on them. They're human. They feel anger, jealousy, everything, also hurt, the whole works. Plus, they have been deeply conditioned to behave in a certain way. And what we need to do is not say, sorry, Sonia, that women are women's worst enemies. It is not at all true. Men have been men's worst enemies forever, and we have never said it. We have never said it. We say it about women very quickly, and I don't think we should. Second, I think we should not be quick to judge. We need to understand what pushes a woman into a position where she will reinforce patriarchy in the household, because she's completely helpless. Where will she go? How many battles will she fight? Who will she fight with? Husband, in-laws, the extended family, society outside. Poonam has just mentioned to you, a woman tries to make a change, the panchayat comes down heavily on her. She would have to be a superwoman to actually say, no, I think this is right, I want that change. A mother would have to be a superwoman to say, no, I want to bring up my daughter equally, because everybody is against her. So we need to empathize, to understand. We need to also not idealize women and think that they will not fight with each other. Of course we will. And why shouldn't we? We are human. So we'll fight, we'll go against each other. Years ago, 40 years ago, I started a business. I co-founded a business. In 20 years, the two partners decided to split up. How many male business splits have there been in the world? Millions? They are professional splits. When we decided to split up, everybody, two women splitting up. My goodness, these women can't get along with each other. Come on, what a load of rubbish. So we are humans. We have to be treated like that. And the position in which we are placed needs empathy and understanding. Otherwise, it will never change. It's a cop-out to say women are complicit in their own thing, because that means that we are just going to let it go. And I think that's totally wrong. I'm sorry, I feel very strongly about this.
I agree. And I think a large part of it is awareness.
Yes.
I think awareness of your position and then make choices based on that. And I think particularly urban women who have access to education, access to so much of the media, can they bring about change just in their own way of thinking?
Yeah. I just wanted to ask, and that's what I meant when I said women can be. I wanted to ask about the whole concept of equality. Do women really believe in equality as much? Is where patriarchy can become difficult for us. You know, if we have been infected with patriarchy ourselves, and then we don't believe in equality, then everything, it just becomes a vicious circle that we can't seem to
I think we
stop.
believe, everybody believes in it fundamentally. The battle to get it is very difficult. That's
It's
the
very
big
difficult.
Absolutely.
It's not easy. Yes.
So I totally agree with you, Urvashi, that it is completely misleading to say women are their own worst enemies, and to also respond to what you just said. I mentioned Ekta Kapoor because you said the men are making the serial, or women, it's not women. Okay, so let me
Most
finish.
of the stories
about
women are written by men.
Yeah, so I think anyone who comes with regressive social norms, whether it's men or women, and I did point out Ekta Kapoor, just to say there are, it is equally unacceptable, and I think people should boycott watching those serials. The way I describe, I had to write an article once on how the serials in India are contributing to not only reinforcing regressive norms, but are taking us back. Because women in the community told us when we went to do our, not research, just to get research was being done by the evaluation external agencies. We wanted to get a sense from the women, the director and I and the scriptwriter, how are women feeling about it. So I remember we went to Kasauli, kafi aage in a backward area, 40 women together said to us, we want to give you feedback before you ask us questions. Ye jo dharavahik hai, they are ruining our families. Because the mother is constantly, mother-in-law sitting and figuring out how to screw the daughter-in-law, and daughter-in-law will do the same to the woman, to the mother-in-law. And what your serial is, they've brought out women differently, and the cooperation, collaboration between men and women. That's why so many men saw it. And finally, I always say women in those धारावाहिक्स are shown as dressed from head to toe. सिंदूर इतना डाल देते हैं कि उनका बाल लाल हो जाता है. But nowhere to go but the kitchen. And the second thing, it was actually these rural women who pointed out to me, and I totally agreed when I was doing the article and the research. Research means surfing those horrible धारावाहिक्स. A woman who works is seen as a woman who has one foot in her boss's bed. And that is what the women said too. So when I spent about 8 hours going through these serials to write my article, I decided I need to write a book and not just an article. And I need to be first absorb the shock of how awful it is. It simply looks at women as nagins, is what I concluded. But having said that, I do want to say there are films that have been made. There are serials or other programs or short films that we have seen that, do I see Mrinal Pandey in the audience? No. She looks like that. No, because Mrinal is the one who inspired Mrinal Pandey us to do this, because she said that there is too much out there that is going to take women back by centuries. So what do we do with Dharavahik's? We need to discuss.
Yes. Certainly. I think we'll try and close this thing, but before we do that, I just want to share my own experiences. When I did a couple of films on social issues, I covered the area of infanticide. And I remember I couldn't believe the horrendous stories that I came across, actually getting to know what was happening. We went into some very remote villages near the Jaisalmer border in Rajasthan, also in Gujarat, in the Bhind Morena area. And one or two things that stayed with me when I knew that these things were happening, and people actually admitted that they were happening. Like the Rajasthani man who said, "Where will I get the money for the dowry? I can barely feed myself and my one more mouth to feed, and I have to then also, get enough for her dowry." That was one that made me realize that they have such pressure on them to live just normal, ordinary lives. And then the woman in Morena, who was living the most, I would say, pathetic life. The girls were, doing all the work with the cow dung, creating the dung cakes for the cattle. The men were just sitting around smoking hookahs. And this woman inside the house with her gungat, she couldn't even come out of the house. She was just trying to cook some food which looked like it wasn't even something edible. And she told me, she said, "Who wants to be a girl in this world? We don't want to. I have had such a life. I don't want another person. I don't want my daughter to have this life." So I was really thinking that, where and what and how can change come about. But fast forward to today, and I'm very happy to see that there has been, and I think largely, again going back to Rajasthan, where the young man came and brought me there was no services, no school, no electricity, no water, but he had a mobile phone, and with that, he was getting educated, and he was hoping to educate his sisters. So I think with education, things are likely to change. And I want to end on a positive note, because I read this very interesting piece from Indra Nui again. She believes that as economies move into a new phase of growth, the next 20 years will be the decades of women. The coming years mark an inflection point for women as society seeks to recover from the pandemic while simultaneously addressing demographic challenges. As she says, and I quote, "I think almost every economy in the world needs women to have children too, because we need the replacement rate for the world. So we ought to sit down and say to ourselves, they need us for the economy, they need us to have kids, and we put in all the unpaid labor so far. So I look at the next couple of decades and say, it's our time now." So we too can say, it's our time. As women, it's our time. We need to make the most of it. Thank you so much for the lovely audience. Thank you for being with us and supporting us. For these wonderful women, Sonia, Urvashi, and Poonam, for giving us your insights. Thank you very much. And to the Vasant Vihar Club LitFest for giving us this opportunity to share our insights. Are there any questions from the audience? Sorry, please use a mic.
My name is Pratima Das, and I have made an observation. During Mr. Shiv Khera's time, the audience was mostly men. And as soon as he finished, most of the men got up and left, and more women walked in. I don't think I need to say anything more.
Thank you.
Can I say something?
Thank you. Yes.
I am inclined to agree with what Urvashi said, that government's policies and state policies, government also needs to intervene through its policies. And I would say that in this particular area, 1/3 of the heads of village panchayats now are women. The moment a woman becomes a head of a village panchayat, that village itself starts getting managed in a much better way. Why? Because women are better managers with the wealth, with the development around, to say that our society at a grassroots level does have many drawbacks, undoubtedly. But then social change is very, very slow. We cannot expect change to occur at a very fast pace, because if we bring about a very stark metamorphosis, people can revolt, men can revolt. We've seen that. We've seen social revolutions abroad, we've seen economic revolutions, where the economy or the society has tried to bring about a change very drastically. So change has to be very, very slow, almost imperceptible. And it's only in retrospect we realize that there has been a change. So even in this case, when we are wanting to change the normative structure, the value system of the society, it has to necessarily be at a very slow pace. Sorry for my interruption.
I'll just add that yes, that's one thing that we needed to cover, we didn't, was the leadership role. And definitely that is an area that is sadly missing. I think we just need...
May I just correct
yes.
your statistic?
Yeah.
It's not 1/3, it's nearly 50%. 1/3 is what we started with in 1992 when the 73rd and 74th Amendments were brought in. And since then, the figure has steadily risen in the 30 years because women have performed so fantastically. And today, of the 3 million elected posts at village and municipal levels in India, 1.4 million are held by women.
Wow.
So there's another statistics that I wanted to correct when I was talking about women's health. I want to correct that 80% women in India are not going through anesthetic deliveries, which was said in the last C-section deliveries. That's not correct, 80%. It is 15% in the private, public sector, which is where large majority take place, and it is 20%, close to 45% in the private sector, because women and men are electing to have. But I want to respond very quickly in addition to what Urvashi said. You know, it is not just at the panchayat level. If women are allowed and they are not just panchpatis, then they are effective when women have the opportunities. And a village, they always say, not just, when a woman is educated or empowered, the whole village gains, the community gains. But I want to quickly give, we had discussed talking about the leadership issues. The 6 women leaders of countries during COVID, whether it was Finland or New Zealand, Ethiopia, Taiwan, those women-headed countries did much better on COVID, whether it was saving lives or it was anything else, including the behavior change, the communication, which was the most important for COVID, was more empathetic, was more appropriate, was honest in the 6 countries where women led. But 2 of those women have recently resigned. Citing burnout, which again shows you can be in a very powerful leadership position, but if the woman is the one who has to tolerate the masculinity and especially the toxic masculinity at work and at home, not have people sharing her burden, even the smartest woman or man will burn out. And let's give men some responsibility to see how many of them don't or do burn out. I hope they won't.
We should end on a positive note, and I think there are a couple of young people here as well. Among the younger generation, I can see that there are men and women sharing responsibilities. I see it in a lot of young people today, and particularly when they go out to the West and they begin to realize that they do have to do all the domestic chores by themselves. Many of them do learn those lessons very quickly. So thank you once again. All of us? Yes, sorry, there's one more.
Just a shameless plug. Do read my book, In Your Blood I Run, because at the heart of it is a female protagonist who's putting up a really good fight. So do read it. Thank you.
So, thank you very much to a very, very diverse, erudite panel here. It's been a very thought provoking session. We do need to reflect back and see how we as individuals can make a change and overcome the social conditioning which has happened over a period of time. And we have to see what we can do to break the stereotype. And unless we start, it's going to be a difficult journey ahead. You all rightly said, men have a responsibility to spearhead the change, but we have to, in some ways, lead them and show them the way, because sometimes that is required. And action is quite important, as you rightly said, that if there is no action and everything is just on paper, then what's the point of making a policy? And creating opportunities. I think what you all spoke about is really so important, because unless those opportunities come a women's way, they don't have a way of showcasing their ability. So that opportunity just makes a lot of difference. I would like to request our sponsor. We'd like to first of all thank our sponsor, Denver, and we have Mrs. Mohita Gupta from Denver to give out a token of appreciation. So, Mohita Gupta, would you like to? A little memento and a gift from Denver for our panelists here. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause, please. And I'll give a little memento to Mohita Gupta for giving our panelists a memento. Whatever you wish.